So I want to talk about why it's important when you're working on an agile transformation not to focus on measuring practices. And so here's what I mean. So a lot of the times, agile changes start off with some sort of management team identifying that their software development teams are not really performing up to their standard. Or unhappy. So what they do is they call in an agile coach. So they come help improve how these teams are working together and delivering our software to the market. And the next step might be for the coach to take a look at what the teams are doing and identifying what they're lacking. And that often looks like introducing new work systems, new Kanban systems, maybe practices like story mapping, and discovery tools like user story mapping. Because this is what people do, this is what you need to do to create good software, and so best practices need to be recommended. And the problem is that while these might be best practices, these coaches then come in and start to say, well, we need to track improvement over time. And so say, well, how are people using Kanban systems? Well, they're getting better at it. They know what to do. We see user stories all over the place. Everything's a user story. And every new initiative has a story map. That's fantastic. Problem is, these are bad things to measure. They are bad proxy metrics that don't really associate with any customer or even employee outcome. So take, for example, you can have great Kanban systems, great stories, and great user story maps, and not have any improvement in employee outcomes or customer satisfaction. So what do you do instead? Well, this is why it's really important to talk about outcomes and obstacles. So outcomes being really defining the sort of outcomes we want in our business through an agile engagement, and obstacles being a definition of where we are, using this map metaphor, and some of the things we need to do across the way and get over that are holding us back. So obstacles in our path. To use a map metaphor, we have rivers, we have rocks, we have little cliffs that we need to somehow get over. And so when you're talking about obstacles, this lets you just define what are some real key business metrics that are going to tie directly with, satisfaction of your employees. Are they happy? And the fitness metrics related to how your customers choose to buy and interact with your business. And so the coach over here, what their job is, as they look at the obstacles the organization is facing, they know how to introduce and apply specific practices as interventions to help these organizations get over each of these obstacles. And as they do that, we should be able to see the business metrics that we've chosen ahead of time start to improve. And based off this trend of our business metrics, we know if the interventions that we've picked are correct, and if we're actually accomplishing our goal of overcoming these different obstacles. So there's one other thing that this sort of bad practice can lead into, of identifying and tracking simply the practices and the sort of the utilization of these different practices. In that a lot of times, these practices are all team level practices. And so what we're measuring is how well are teams using these different things. And what we're leaving out is we're not really asking the question, and there's no opportunity to ask, well, what role is management having? What role do leaders have, do managers have, and their sort of management systems in how they're affecting both their teams and team interactions, and they're sort of motivators. So you get much richer conversation, and you're able to tackle those and sort of bring those issues out better as you talk about obstacles and outcomes. When you don't, you focus just on the team issues. All right, thank you very much. I hope that was helpful.